Hey guys, Robby Rowland here, wanting to talk about effortless velocity. So I made a post on Instagram recently about effortless velocity, and I threw up a video of Verlander who was doing a warm-up pitch, you know, moving at very like 50% probably, but then when he goes into throw, the ball like jumps out of his hand, right? So like obviously we can perceive that as effortless and it still comes out good. So the question is, how do we obtain it? And kind of what are the things that goes into it, right? So I'm gonna break down the way that I perceive effortless velocity and the things that I think go into it. I first wanna start by talking about intent, because I think, you know, we have a pretty good understanding of like intent to throw hard. I've done a lot of things on, hey, maybe you're just not trying to throw hard. Maybe your intent is not to try to throw hard. And so now we have a lot of youth athletes are now just every time they touch a ball, they're just getting after it. They're freaking grunting, farting, and all this other stuff. And they're like, oh, my intent's good. I'm going to throw hard. Okay, that's fine. Yes, that could be one particular category of throwing hard, but the goal shouldn't necessarily be increased intent. The goal should be, how can I throw this ball with extremely high pitching velocity, but without even trying, right? So that's going to be a really, really good indication of how you're moving on the mound when you're pitching. Okay, so that's we know that that's probably the most important, because that's not only going to allow you to repeat your delivery and be consistent, but it's also going to protect against any injuries, right? We know like you're more susceptible to injury probably if you're having to just go balls out 120% every single time you throw a ball just to hit 90. Right? So like I said, the goal should be to do it. And this is why I love long toss, because it's a better representation. Like the goal of my long toss is to see how far I can throw it without trying. Now you have a distance, right? I feel like anytime someone gets 60 feet 6 inches and tries to radar their throw, it's a subconscious thing in an athlete's / competitor's mindset of like, there's no such thing now as effortless. It's like, oh, I gotta freaking hit this number. Anyways, all right, talking effortless velocity. So the obvious underlying statement would be effortless velocity is you just moving extremely efficient through time and space with very minimal energy leakages, right? So I'm gonna use the terminology energy, force, and then, you know, obviously we'll kind of progress throughout the delivery. So the way that I look at effortless velocity is starting from the very beginning, right? What are we doing well? Okay, so we know, I talk about this a lot, we know that the initial move in the pitching delivery is like the most crucial piece to the entire delivery, because that's going to set you up for success as you move forward. If you have a poor initial move, or if like there's a drive leg instability and you start wiggling, or there's ankle instability, and as soon as you lift up your lead leg, you're kind of already uncoordinated, then your body's going to constantly fight coordination. It's going to constantly compensate throughout the whole delivery. So first right off the bat, as soon as we lift our leg, we need to showcase feet, ankle, leg, all that stability, right? So we need to be able to have good posture in our initial lift. But as soon as we, get to that point where our foot is now off the ground, I look at it as in, how can we now increase our forward momentum down the mound? How can we increase it towards our target, which is going to now accelerate our body into our drive phase? Now, the other thing that I look at is center mass, right? So the ability to control the center mass of your body, and looking at kind of that head posture as we now enter that drive phase, right? So I talk a lot about that hip coil, that aggressive hip coil, and a lot of guys trying to defy gravity by trying to get back. So now if you're a guy that hip coils, you don't have a really good controlling position of the center of your mass, right? So you're pushing that leg, you're trying to gain momentum with your drive leg, but you're also trying to defy gravity back here. So now the center mass isn't necessarily controlled, okay? So accelerating your body into the drive phase, and then accelerating through that drive phase with, you know, good posture, controlling center of mass, right? So now it comes down to how can we do that and then efficiently apply as much force, energy into the ground, and then how can we take that amount of ground force production and get at least 99%, right? Because we're not always going to get 100, right? There's too many instability issues, but to get as much back as possible up through the kinetic chain out through ball hand. So again, when it comes to moving efficiently, right, it's about the stability in those single legs to stabilize that load or that energy as we come down. And then also you have to look at the movement capacity potential. Is like, do you have the capacity now to hold ground connection and then move, you know, those hips externally, internally through time and space, stabilizing, controlling center mass. All right, so if you lack that internal external rotation of the hips or the hip movement capacity, if you go into your drive phase, right, and this lead leg, if you don't have that movement, it's going to pull this drive leg into early internal rotation. Okay, then you're going to leak a lot of velocity, you're going to leak a lot of energy. So we don't want that. We want to hold connection and we want to maximize that separation, and then when it comes time, then we want to go into internal rotation as a byproduct of just maximizing that movement. So if you don't have the movement ability, then obviously, you know, you're leaving potential velocity on the table. So talked about the stability, energy into the ground, foot connection all the way through, and then another one would be just good direction, overall direction, right? We want all our energy to be expressed as linear as possible. We want it all to be going towards home plate. That's another component of effortless velocity, because if we're a guy that has the inability to, you know, hip hinge, corkscrew that back hip, load the glutes, and we're a guy that gets into more of a quad dominant heel disconnection package here, then our direction is going to be thrown off, because now our energy distribution is going at like a 45-degree angle and then having to catch back up online through an over aggressive front side rotation. Okay, so that's another component as far as being extremely linear and efficient towards home plate. I would say like the last kind of piece to this is how well we stabilize now with the lead leg. Okay, so as I mentioned before, we're trying to take everything we've expressed energy wise from the back side to the front side. In order to do that, we have to have a good efficient lead leg block. Okay, so it's like a crash dummy in a car going full speed, hitting a wall, and you see those crash dummies go flying. That wall is freaking sturdy, right? It's not going anywhere. So that's why you see that power from those crash dummies going forward. So it's the same concept with this lead leg. We want to make sure that our pelvis and our pelvis is moving, you know, efficiently and sequencing the rest of the body efficiently throughout that drive phase. But as soon as we land, okay, we want to make sure that we're able to stabilize, because now that block brings that kinetic energy up, right, through the chain and out through the fingertips. So if we're a guy that lacks that single leg stability and we land and we're trying to block and brace all of this force production from the back, it's a lot, right? A lot of energy, a lot of momentum, acceleration. If we come down and we have, you know, a little bit of knee shift going forward, that's a leakage of energy. Right? So the highly efficient pitchers that we see, the guys that are able to express effortless velocity, are extremely efficient with that pelvis rotation, front foot strike, and then you've created this separation from this authentic separation from hip rotation occurring, trunk rotation delaying, arm raise delaying, boom, you're here. And now as that pelvis begins to now rotate over the femur, you see that knee going into extension. Right? And now with that being said, the kind of the last piece, I know I already said that, is now as you begin your throw, kinetic energy comes up. As it's coming up, now you want to maximize that drive leg hip extension, okay? And now you throw and a good arm deceleration finish. Another breakdown that we could see is from the trunk and instability in the trunk from not being able to take that energy up through the whole entire chain out through the fingertips, right? So the trunk instability could potentially lead to a hip drive and hip extension breakdown where you see a trail leg hip flexion kind of going in aggressively, right? So now we're not able to express and elongate all of that energy that we've tried to, you know, transfer to the front side. So, wow, I know that's a lot. I just kept thinking of other things in my mind as we fumble. 10-yard penalty, repeat, 5th down. Okay, cool. Well, maybe you guys got something from that, maybe you didn't, but at the end of the day, you still got to look at my beard bun. You're welcome for that. Until next time, my name's Robbie Rowland, and I talk to myself a lot. See ya.